Give me 1 second to set some more stuff up. All right, 3, 2, 1.
Alrighty, what's happening, everybody? This is the Philly Experience Podcast. Back with everybody. Excited to be with you all tonight. Max Gripsula, Tyler Hood, Tanner Gilmartin, Chris Thacker, whole crew here tonight. We want to talk about so many topics tonight, guys. We will obviously want to touch on protesting, everything that's been going on in recent weeks. We want to touch on the virus still. I mean, that people are forgetting like how many Americans this has killed. And if we have any time at the end, we wanted to, obviously we're a sports show, and we want to bring sports coverage and information to our viewers. So we want to touch on, obviously the the NHL starting back up and the NBA starting back up as well within the next month or two, maybe. But let's dive right into it. It's no secret what's been happening around the country, even now around the globe. Other countries even protesting about the death of George Floyd on Memorial Day afternoon. I want to throw it, Chris. I'll throw it to you first. I just want to get your thoughts. So many different
Yeah.
directions we can go here. Obviously with protesting, you can start with racism. I mean, any direction you wanted to start with here, be my guest.
Yeah. I mean, I've the past 3 days I've been trying to, think about what to say just because it's just such a it's a touchy subject, and
Yeah, of course, of
I'm
course.
really looking first and foremost the death of George Floyd. I'm sure you guys all saw the video.
Yeah,
Um, it was sickening. It was really hard to watch. My thoughts and prayers go out to all of George Floyd's friends and family. Um, and the protests I fully support the riots, the looting, the burning down businesses and people's houses. That stuff, it's not needed. It's not helping change. It doesn't. It's not helping change. And I, like I said, I'm really trying to think about what I can do to maybe to just help. And you can only do what you can do, and just show kindness. And you know, a big part of racism is ignorance. And what you can do for yourself is to teach yourself the history of systematic, racism in the justice system. And you know, just looking back at my own education, especially when I was younger, and maybe because I was such a carefree kid and all I cared about was freaking recess. I looking back at what I was taught during the civil rights movement and just what was going on in the 50s, it seemed very, yeah, that's what happened. But and you didn't really, I felt like it wasn't really expanded upon. And how can we learn from this? It was more, here's something that happened once with Rosa Parks. I implore anyone to teach them, just educate themselves on racism in general. Like, I don't know if you guys know about the story of Emmett Till. Um,
yeah,
that I didn't know about that until high school. Personally, it wasn't it wasn't something I was taught at school. I learned it on my own, and it's just a sickening story. And that's something that, for me personally, it hit me it hit me really hard. Just something, someone can do something that cruel and evil. And a big thing with me is to teach yourselves, because it's a privilege to learn. It's a privilege that everyone has to learn from the past mistakes of all of our ancestors, because we need to come together. And I it it's beyond. We're past this. I feel like we should be past this, and
Yep.
it's I can't even imagine like T what you're feeling. It's frustrating, and just my heart goes out to everyone. Just
Yeah.
I hate seeing what I'm seeing, and it's really tough, man. It's
Of
really
course,
tough.
100%. I mean, I think you brought up a great point there. Education. Um, you know, being white, Christian, Tanner, obviously, we didn't have to grow up with, any racism or any, remarks, maybe walking down the street or things like that.
No.
So what you said there was really important. Educate ourselves. We have like the responsibility, and we have friends. We all have African American friends.
Yeah.
T being primary example right here, and we don't. I mean, of course, we can ask T questions. I'm sure, like we all do, to try to educate ourselves on the matter at hand. But and at the end of the day, it's our responsibility to try to go back in history and bring up, past, racism type of, stories that have happened. Chris, you brought up Rosa Parks, Emmett Till, definitely, both two prime examples, and that's kind of how for me personally, like I can educate myself that way and try to think about for the future. Okay, what can I do to help? And that's really my primary focus right now, is just trying to learn about like the past, and also trying to look towards the future about how we can get past this. Tanner, I'll throw it to you next, and try to get your comments here.
Right. Well, first off, I just want to say what happened to Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and more recently George Floyd, amongst countless others that lost their lives to police brutality and racism. It was just sickening and heartbreaking, especially to watch the videos and see, and for that video to be displayed all throughout the world, and for people to see their family members on that video or friends. It's just it's really heartbreaking. And now, on terms of protesting the injustice and fighting for what's right, it's just, I think it's beautiful what's going on right now, that everyone is expressing what they believe is the right thing. And of course, there'll always be disagreements on how people are doing. Chris mentioned riots and looting and stuff like that, but I'll let T get into that. I know he wants to touch on that topic a little later, but this is exactly what the men and women of our country have fought for on the battlefields. A right to voice opinions, and it, for liberty and justice for all. And it really does mean for all. And I think until that happens, until there's justice for all, there will be unrest. But right now, I think we're moving in the right direction. I watched George Floyd's funeral earlier today. I thought that it was beautiful how people gathered around to pay their respects, and I think the whole thing, I watched it. It was beautiful. And you guys also know that I'm a stats guy, I like stats, and not only did the entire country participate in these protests, but 18 other countries did as well. And this makes it, if it's not the biggest, one of the biggest civil rights movement in world history. And we can look back in a few years, and I know I'll be able to tell my kids that I was a part of this. I went out to protest at Lansdale. They had a little peaceful protest, and it's just we're witnessing history right now. And I just think the protests are moving in the. I know Chris mentioned the riots and everything, but T can touch on that. But
Yeah. Again, I agree with everything you said there. It's great that you were able to go out and actually be a part of it. I think that was, what was that, yesterday, 2 days ago?
a couple days ago, yeah.
A couple of days ago. Okay, a couple of days ago. I want to touch on just the looting thing, and I guess I'm going to segue into what T has to say by asking this question. Like, T, I know different people, and I know you can't answer for in different individuals, but what do you think, goes through the mind of people when, you have some or most of the protesters just peacefully protesting, and you have others who, are a little bit more aggressive and they want to, vandalize cars and, loot stores and things like that? Like, is that just, them being more frustrated than others, or, what do you think goes into that thought process?
Let me kind of paint a picture a little bit. So for those of you that follow me on my Instagram, and for those of you that know me, one of my jobs is that I help my aunt and uncle at their storefront, and they've been in business for over 50 years. Black owned, mind you. Sunday was when the 52nd Street in West Philadelphia riots happened. Mm-hmm. And the entire day, I'm just like on edge, because even though that day I didn't work, I'm calling up my family. I'm like, hey, listen, y'all good? Nobody's acting crazy. Right. Nobody's coming in, trying to do anything. Like, are y'all good? I was like, yeah, we good. But the next day was my day to come in, and I get there about an hour and a half before we would open. And as the video showed that I put on my Instagram page, we were looted. Most of my product was gone. They broke through the door and they took what they wanted. And the thing about it was, if these questions were asked of me, if I was asked to be put in front of a microphone, be put in front of a camera and speak my mind on this, then I would have been furious. I would have been angry.
Yeah, rightfully so.
But the thing about it was, I'm glad that I had the chance to calm down, because my video somewhat went viral. It started spreading. So we all know Barry from Montgomery County Community College. That's where we're all from. That's where we all met. Barry shared the video, and in his post of my shared video, there were discussions about why these things are happening. And I'm reading through these comments, and there seems to be a disconnect. There seems to be a misunderstanding as to why these things are happening, why we're angry, why there are riots, why they're destroying stores. Not to say that I agree with it, because I certainly don't, but I understand. So let me paint this picture for you. Over 400 years, African Americans have been oppressed. We were taken from our land, and then moved to a foreign land. And then we were considered property. We weren't people, we were property. We were like furniture that we sit on, like the beds that we lay in. We were property. And then in the 1770s, when the founding fathers wrote that document, that infamous document that said all men are created equal, it didn't count for us. It counted for them. And then as time goes by, the Civil War starts. So to kind of further reiterate this, let me paint this picture. Let's say, for example, for over 400 years ago, you have this gas pilot and this gas line that's hooked up. So let's say over 400 years ago, the slave trade happens and that gas pilot is lit, but it's low. You don't really notice it. It's low. Little blue flame shooting out. Civil War happens. Flame shoots up a little bit more. Start to notice it a little bit. Okay. Supposedly, due to Abraham Lincoln, we are free. Not really. It took a little while, but we were considered free. But we were still considered second-class citizens. So the flame is still there. So time goes on. So finally, African Americans are tired of being second-class citizens. We're tired of being oppressed. We want the same equal rights as the next man. So we start to protest peacefully. And yet and still, we are met with hoses. We are met with dogs. We are met with lynching. We are met with neighborhoods being destroyed. businesses being destroyed. We are met with all these things. So that flame just gets a little bit more lighter. A little bit more gas is poured into that flame, but still under control. Leaders died. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, these leaders died. Flame gets up a little bit more, but still under control. Time goes by. Killings are still happening. The issue is they're just not being recorded. Now with modern technology and cell phones, now we see exactly what's going on. So with the differences in the school system, in addition to the killings, flame just shoots up more and more and more. The gas gets turns up a whole lot more. So, and I think what turned the gas on to full was this coronavirus that hit. Because with what happened was there are a lot of people that are living paycheck to paycheck, and they miss a paycheck. They can't pay their bills. They can't feed their kids. Heck, they can't even feed themselves. So coronavirus hits. A lot of people lose their jobs. Frustration is at an all-time high. Some people can't get on unemployment to get benefits. So now the flame is at its highest. At its pure highest. It's noticeable now. You can see it. Flame is shooting out. But once again, because it's controlled by a pilot, you can still control it. What happened to George Floyd was like somebody taking a gallon of gasoline and throwing it on that fire. And this is exactly what's happened. Now it's an all-out blaze and you can't control it. This is the result of the fact that people have not listened to us when we say that we were being oppressed. This is the result. I understand the riots. I'm not for the destroying of businesses, but I completely understand because we were sick and tired of being sick and tired. Colin Kaepernick protested by simply kneeling during the national anthem, and all of a sudden people were saying that he was protesting the flag. So recently, Drew Brees comes out with his comment saying that he still finds it disrespectful for individuals to kneel during the national anthem. I'm going to say something that's probably different from what everybody else is saying. I respect his opinion. I honestly do. I respect it. But at the same time, Drew Brees has to respect where we're coming from, too. That flag is supposed to mean liberty and justice for all. That flag is supposed to mean that all men are created equal. And the fact of the matter is, it's not. It does not mean that all men are created equal. It does not mean that everybody gets the same advantages as the next person. It does not. Colin Kaepernick was not protesting the flag. He was protesting police brutality peacefully. Peacefully. He wasn't violent about it. He was vocal about it. He told people what he was protesting for. But it's like that kid that keeps continuing to get bullied. And he tells everybody, this person is bullying me and it needs to stop. He tells his parents, he tells teachers, he tells everybody that he knows, this person is bullying me. This is a problem and it needs to be fixed, and nothing gets done about it. So guess what? The kid gets angrier and angrier and angrier as the days go on. And then eventually he snaps. And this is exactly the result, unfortunately, of what's going on. Now, I hope I painted enough of a picture for people to understand our pain, what we have gone through. We are in a country that, first off, we did not ask to be in. We are in a country that we were forced, our ancestors were forced to be in. And then to bring up Drew Brees' comments again, he talked about how his grandfather served in the World War and came back as heroes, and they were considered heroes. Well, let me tell you something. When my grandfathers and my ancestors went and fought in that same war, when they came back to oppression. They came back to individuals saying, hey, N-word, you can't eat here. You can't sit here. You can't drink from that water. You can't use that bathroom. They didn't get the hero's welcome like everybody else did. They were disrespected. They were spit on, not treated fair. This is the reason why the protests are happening and the riots are happening. But here's the thing, and now I'm going to talk directly to everybody that's rioting and everybody that's using their anger in a negative way and they're looting. I understand your frustration as a black man. I understand completely because I am beyond pissed right now. But here's the thing. You need to channel that anger into a more positive manner. Rioting and looting is not the answer. Rioting and looting within your own neighborhoods against your own people, that ain't it. It's not the way to do it. You want to change the system and you want to make a change, here's what we do. They finally have given us the right to vote. So use it. Use that power. Elect officials into the office that have your best interests at heart. And if you think that they're not doing a great job and they don't have your best interests at heart, then either you run or you encourage somebody else to run and you vote that person in. Your vote counts. That's your voice. And another way that you can change, that you can influence in a positive manner instead of rioting and looting, watch where your money goes. Okay? A lot of these corporate businesses are government funded. Places such as Walmart and, in stores of that nature, Walmart, Target, things like that. So instead of shopping at those particular places, shop local businesses. Shop at minority-owned businesses. Shop locally in your community. That money gets flowed back and forth into your community. The community grows. The community sees positivity within these store owners. And it's a happy system. Create more stores within your own community so that you don't have to rely on these other corporate stores for your everyday living. I haven't seen an old school department store in a long time. The only department stores I know of are Lowe's and Home Depot. So change that. That's all I'm saying. There's a positive way of doing these things. And the way they're going about it now is the wrong way. And listen, I'm going to tell you something right now, because I've talked to people that have protested within the city of Philadelphia. They're not fighting fair. I can tell you that much right now. My friend, who I consider my brother, lives a couple doors down from me. He participated in a protest on Monday night. And he was said that they were marching peacefully on Broad Street, on a certain strip of Broad Street. It got to the curfew time. Well, they were being escorted the entire time by a police escort the entire time. And they were peaceful, he said. They didn't riot, they didn't loot, they didn't break any stores, none of that. They got to Broad and Spring Garden. They were met with a tank. They were shot point blank, period, with those rubber bullets. My friend was beaten 5 times with a baton. When I seen him, he had a limp. He was bleeding inside his mouth. He had a sore wrist. He was beaten. The exact thing that they are protesting is the exact thing that is happening to them. Peaceful protests, and they're still getting shot at. So I understand, once again, the anger, but you must take that anger and channel it into a positive reaction, because matching with fire, that's not going to work. It's never going to work. Never. So please, I implore everybody that's watching this, that will watch this, that's listening to this, that will listen to this under the sound of my voice. I appreciate everybody that has reached out, that has supported this movement, but let's do it peacefully. And let's change the way we do things as a society. Let's change the way we think. Let's change the way we do things. Because this ain't it. Running through businesses that, working people have worked their entire lives for. This ain't it, fam.
Yeah.
My family-owned business has been sitting there for over 50 years. We have never wronged anybody, not once. We weren't mad. No, let me take that back. We were mad. We were upset. I was angry. But thankfully, we opened back up today, and we were able to open back up. But sometimes other places aren't that fortunate. So that's why I'm telling people to channel their anger in a more positive manner. Keep protesting. Keep fighting for what's right. Keep fighting for equal rights for all individuals, not just certain. Keep fighting against the systematic racism that still exists today. And for those people that think that systematic racism doesn't exist, let me tell you something. It does. Okay? It does. I went to a magnet school in the school district of Philadelphia. Supposedly, I went to one of the top schools in the city. Let me tell you something. Okay? At the time, I went to high school from 2008 to 2012. So that was President Barack Obama's reign. Our textbook said that George H.W. Bush was the president. Now you tell me something ain't right with that. George H.W. Bush was the president. That's what our textbook said. And systematic racism doesn't exist. You know, kids in the suburbs don't get a better education than us kids in urban cities. Are you kidding me? Oh, there's a big difference. Huge difference. But I like the direction that everything is going. I like the direction where, some institutes are going. Like where I met you guys at Montgomery County Community College, I thank them. I thank the way that their culture is set up. I haven't ran into one person there that I've ever had a problem with. You had people from opposite ends of the spectrum coming together in unity as one. That culture that they cultivated there, that's the culture that needs to be cultivated throughout the United States. Unity. We must come together as one people, as one body. We must work together. We must stand for each other. If one person falls down, I need somebody to help me get back up. I need that support. That's what we have to do as individuals. Black people, white people, Asian, Hispanics, all origins of life. We all need to have each other's back. Because at the end of the day, you cut each of us, we all bleed red. We are all the same person. That's my piece about it.
Well, to you, again, so much to break down there from what you said. So much good information that, myself, Chris, Tanner, we were all able to hear, obviously. And I just want to add, we can go so many different directions off of this topic. Like what I want to do, I guess what you could start with, since it's so recent, is just Drew Brees' comments, being so, popular in the NFL, T obviously being such a big football guy. I just feel like and I'm sure Chris and Tanner agree, just the timing of it was bad. Yeah. I know he didn't really come out and say anything as far as racism, like he didn't use that word. But again, he did mention the kneeling. And Colin Kaepernick obviously kneeled for, I think it was a few seasons. I know at least one season. And then obviously when Brees comes out and makes those comments as he did yesterday, just bad timing. And obviously his teammates even come out, and it's not surprising to see. Tanner, you could take it here. I know Brees, he came out and then apologized again today. I'm sure he didn't mean any disrespect behind it, but your thoughts on the whole matter?
Well, it's a familiar thing that we've said last show. It's the title of our last show. It's bad timing. Mm-hmm. I think Drew Brees, he has a strong opinion, but the flag, as do a lot of other people's, and the topic for some people can go either way, and it's controversial in that matter. But the timing of saying it is just wrong. And as Malcolm Jenkins corrected Drew Brees, he said he looks up to him, but he did use some choice words to put Drew Brees in his place. And I think it's good that Drew Brees is apologizing. And I'm sure now he knows that the timing was just terrible. Like we mentioned, last week on Bryce Harper bringing up a money dispute in a time when people are really suffering for money, and now Breeze bringing this up during a time where people are really struggling, going out there and protesting for their rights, and for him to bring something up like that, it's just bad timing.
Yeah, Chris, I'll throw it to you now. I mean, anything you can touch on the Breeze subject or anything T said in general, and your thoughts on what we've heard, so far throughout the first half hour of the show.
I mean, yeah, like I understand what he's saying, but I mean, just like you and Tanner already said, just it's not the time to say something like that. It's in such a crucial time. And I appreciate that he immediately apologized. And I watched. I've been following closely to what Malcolm Jenkins has been posting on his Instagram, and just because I'm personally such a big fan of Malcolm Jenkins. Like he's a guy I look to in these situations, and just seeing how it hit him, it really like
especially as a teammate.
yeah, exactly. And because when I read it personally, I said, man, that seems like not a smart thing to say. But it seeing what Malcolm had to say, it just really opens my eyes to how just wrong it was in the moment.
And like you saw the pain in Malcolm Jenkins' face. Like he had to stop himself from crying a couple of times,
100%.
as he was saying, how wrong Drew Brees' comments were. And like I said before, I respect Drew Brees' opinion. And I know that's not the popular thing to say, but I respect Drew Brees' opinion. But I will also counter it with the fact that, once again, I had family members that fought in that war too, but they did not get the hero's welcome that they deserved. So, we live in two different worlds, unfortunately. And the thing about it is, Drew, I need you to see things from another person's standpoint of view. It's the reason why I did speak for as long as I did, because I wanted to paint a picture of what the average Black person sees on a daily basis, what we've gone through, what we see, what we experience. So, for him to say those comments, it's pretty clear that he doesn't see. And that's the thing. Like, it's not just him. There's a lot of people that have that kind of mentality. So, it's up to us to educate these people, to educate, the individuals who think like this. There's nothing wrong with, their thoughts. It's their opinion. That's fine. I have no problem with you speaking your opinion, but you need to be educated as to everything that's going on before you go ahead and open your mouth and say something like that, especially at a time like this.
Yeah, Breeze. I mean, listen, from what I took from it was he mentioned his grandfather who fought in the war. It almost thought like his thought process, I think, when he was speaking was almost military-esque. I think he mentioned how when he looked at the stars and the stripes, it made him think of the war, and then how he had family members who fought in it. And I think what he meant to say was that, people who kneel during the national anthem, like he doesn't respect that because he thinks maybe it disrespects the people fighting every day for our lives. But again, when you have what's going on outside, in the streets, protesting and all that stuff, to even answer the question. And again, my question is, in a time like this, why put yourself out there? Why accept? I think the interview was with Yahoo. Why accept the interview? The guys are going to ask you some personal questions like that. Why would you go out in a time like this and put your opinions out there? Especially being a figure that we are. Us, trying to learn things here and talk about it. We have our own opinions, but Drew Brees is, being one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, millionaire, things like that. Obviously everybody follows him, millions of followers on Instagram. People look up to this guy, especially in the NFL, and to come out and just not say the right thing, and even take the interview. I get it. He wants to try to speak his mind and show that he's a strong public figure. But just when he said it and how he said it, I think is key. How he said it and how it came off is the reason why
you're a strong public figure as big as Drew Brees. Like, the last thing you need to be saying is something insensitive like that. And the timing, once again, was just horrible.
I do want to ask you this question. Obviously, we started out as far as the 4 officers. 3 of them were not arrested originally. One was third-degree murder. Recently, as recently as yesterday, I believe, the one officer who actually had the knee on George Floyd's neck, his charge was upgraded to a second degree.
Yes,
second degree, and then the other 3 were also charged as well. So basically, I think all of us here have the same question, and that is, protesting. How long does this happen? We still see protesting going. We see peaceful, but we also do still see looting, which I think we all disagree with, because it's not really. I mean, I understand people are very angry, but not saying that's the right way to go about it. What has to happen? I heard a lot of people on sports radio, even in Philadelphia, people say that these guys have to get put behind bars. These guys have to get charged. Now, 2 days ago, these guys weren't charged. At least 3 of the 4 officers weren't charged. Now that they are, do you think that things are going to change here as far as maybe there's going to be less violent protesting?
Well, Max, I just want to say, at around 5:30, I got a notification from a petition I signed earlier this week that, indeed, that all cops were now charged in the murder of George Floyd. So, as you were going about how the protests need to go, I still feel like people still are going to express what they believe in, and I don't know if this will. You were saying it'll kind of change the way people are going about the protests. I'm not sure that it will, because on both sides of the protest there's violence going about the protest, but it's a step towards justice.
Of course.
And now people can start to feel that their voices are being heard, and that these petitions and all the sharing of just messages and stuff like that is going towards the right direction, and people are starting to listen to that.
Of course. Now, without getting too political here, I know that the election's coming up in November. I'm sure there's going to be protesting that's going to continue into the summer. And I also want to bring in the coronavirus factor into all of this. I mean, I do think, at least in my opinion, part of these protests and how big they are is because, people have been quarantined for 2 months now, obviously not everybody is, just going out of the house. Oh, well, let's go protest. There's so many people, myself included, are passionate about the subject. I want to learn more and learn more about, the topic of racism and how I can help, and how we can all, help, educate ourselves about the past and for the future. But how do you guys think, as far as the length of this period, if there was a new president elected, will that change the fact, would these people, these 4 officers being behind bars now, change the fact that maybe there'll be decreased protesting? Or do you think it's just going to be something that's just going to be continuous in different parts of the country, and maybe even at different times as well?
Well, Max, that's a big question. Question kind of walking on thin ice, because you're talking about 2 presidential candidates.
Of course, yeah. We're not a political show, obviously we're not a political show, but and T especially, it's going to add on to this. Do you think, as an African American, what's your opinions on what has to change? What can change really? Where do we start?
So here's my thing. While I'm happy that the officers that were involved in the George Floyd murder are getting the justice that they deserve, they are getting the charges that they deserve. But the thing about it was, they didn't get charged immediately.
Right.
It took
Yeah, definitely. It's true.
it took a protest. It took us to finally raise our voices. It took us to finally start yelling and be like, "Hey, yo, this ain't right.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously,
Definitely.
you killed a man in cold blood, and the man said that he can't breathe." And
Yeah.
in order for these protests to stop, if you want these protests to stop, then two things need to happen. Well, three. If you involve voting, getting the right officials, the officials that you think for your agenda are going, have your best interests at heart. Voting is number one. Number two, police reformation. The way police in urban cities interact with us as individuals. Okay. The thing about it is the reason why we don't trust the police is because we don't see the police unless something bad happens. And then when something bad happens, here's the thing, another thing, unfortunately, that follows all African Americans. It's the presumption of guilt. We walk around with that stigma all the time, and the police approach us about that with that mentality each and every single time. I'm gonna tell y'all a story. 2 times I've been stopped by the police. Now, thankfully, I've had my grandmother with me the entire time. But now I got stopped because my brake light was out. But both of those times that I got stopped, that officer walked up to my vehicle with his hand like this here, already ready, just in case something bad happens. Why are you walking up to my vehicle like that with that mentality? You're already presuming that something bad is going to happen. In your mind, you're already thinking something negative is going to happen. And that mentality has to stop. So police reformation, that needs to happen as well. And until the relationship between urban city livers and the police is fixed, it's not going to happen. And let's move on to number 3. There needs to be some sort of penalty or some sort of immediate action when an officer kills any individual, period. There doesn't need to be any message about, oh, he's getting a paid vacation or paid leave or anything like that. No, that person or they're on desk duty. No, what needs to happen is if there is injustice, if something happens and the family that is wrong feel as though there was an injustice happen, then that officer needs to be removed from his position. His badge needs to be taken. And like people who gets convicted, they need to go through a full criminal investigation as to exactly what happened. And that's just my 2 piece about it. So until, first off, until black men stop getting killed and there's no immediate action about it, these protests are going to continue to happen.
Yeah. Tanner, go ahead. I think we might share the same opinion here. Go ahead.
I just want to add on to what T's saying and tell the viewers we're going to wrap this up soon or we'll have to change the category of our show. But I just want to add that T mentioned voting, and I think that's very important, is the education of voting and for people to really understand what they're voting for, who they're voting for. And the media is very dangerous, especially in today's world. People could see something on the Explore page and now believe that and then tell their friends that, and it spreads. Someone could just have made that news up. So it's very dangerous. You have to check multiple sources. And I know a few people that aren't even registered to vote. And I think it's very important to, there's people that weren't allowed to vote. We talked, T mentioned this earlier.
Yeah.
And
use your voice, use your voice.
I think it's very important to have the ability to vote. You don't even have to vote for a particular, I know this election is going to be Biden and Trump. You don't even have to vote for either of those two. You can vote for yourself. As long as you're out there voting and having your voice heard. That's what's important to me, is just having the ability to vote.
Yeah, Tanner, I
Some-
definitely agree. Oh, Chris, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
Go
no.
ahead.
Something I also wanted to add to what T said. When it comes to police reformation, I forget where I saw the stat, but I saw the stat generalizing the typical course of the police academy, and the numbers show that they train in action situations with a gun about 79-80% of the time, and they only train on interactions with people about 12% of the time. And I understand that you need to teach these people going to the police academy how to use a gun, but you also need to teach these people how to interact with the people that you're supposed to be protecting.
Yeah,
And
100%.
if you can't learn to communicate with people in general, skin color is completely irrelevant to interacting with people and communicating with people. If that is such an important skill that I personally think is not focused upon enough with the law enforcement.
Yeah,
That's just
Chris, I
Yeah.
agree. I think you have to be able to diffuse a situation. That's the goal
Exactly.
of officers going in there. And usually every time they get a call, it's obviously something, there's a problem. They're walking into something that's bad, and it's just a shame because not all officers are horrible. They're not all bad people. Just man, I was just almost brought to tears just watching the video. I mean, the officer just on kneeling on him, and obviously all those bystanders just can't do anything about it. They're yelling, they're telling them to get off. Obviously, it's just really a shame.
Involved in their lives are on the line.
Yeah, it's a shame, and I'm glad. Now that we have video and everything like that, but I'm just glad that from a sports standpoint, athletes are speaking out, and it's all people that we've looked up to growing up. LeBron James, from even Steven Jackson, who was a friend of George Floyd's, and he's been protesting in Minneapolis, where the death of George Floyd occurred. And it's just great to see everybody just being passionate about the subject because it's really important. And I just like how everybody has come together, and I'm glad that everybody is using their voice, by protesting, and Tanner being a part of it is great. I definitely respect that to go out and to protest. I think the more people who do it, and the more people who show that they're passionate and use their voice, that's a start. Like T mentioned, we have to start somewhere, and by protesting and fighting for justice is definitely a start.
I agree wholeheartedly.
So I do want to, because we only have about 10 minutes left here, do want to touch on some sports topics to end the show today, and I want to touch on it with Chris. Chris, we'll start first with NHL coming back, and the Flyers are in. Which is great. Thankfully, we'll have hockey, we'll have playoff hockey, and the Flyers will be a part of it.
At this point, I don't care.
Exactly. Finally, one episode where T is not bad mouthing hockey, so that's cool.
We got to watch.
Young.
We got to watch golf. Is that a week ago or so with
I
Phil,
found that
Tiger,
enjoyable.
Peyton, and Brady.
Yeah,
that was enjoyable to watch.
That was enjoyable.
It was just enjoyable to watch Peyton Manning just badmouth Tom Brady. That was the best part of it.
Very.
I'll bring Nick Foles as my caddy.
Entertaining.
That was amazing. Max, dude, honestly, something that a lot of people are worried about with all the sports at this point is whoever wins the championship they're going to have the asterisk they won because of this situation. But this is going to be like the toughest playoffs because potentially you have to go through 5 rounds.
I was going to ask you that. Can you explain do you know the format? Would you be able to explain it?
Yeah, no. So, to my understanding, it's a 24 team playoff system, and the top 4 teams in the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference get a first round bye, and the Flyers just squeaked in, are the 4th seed.
Yeah,
they're the 4th seed in the East, so they're getting that first round bye. The remaining 18 teams. if my math is correct there. No, 16
Oh, wait,
teams.
no, 16
teams.
teams.
The remaining 16 teams are going to play in a 5-game series.
Best of 5.
And to my understanding, the teams that lose in the 5-game series are then added into the draft lottery, which I honestly hate because that means a team like
the Devils,
Pittsburgh Penguins.
Oh, I was going a whole different direction. There,
no, a team that is insanely good that loses 3 games could get the first overall pick because, of course, it's Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
and
I was going for like the Devils or a poor team would get robbed, so like the first round pick.
Oh no,
Either way would work.
I hope they don't get it either.
But
yeah, no. So the way that I've seen the bracket set up is the Flyers would be playing the winner of Pittsburgh and Montreal. And so that, and I mean, if I'm being honest, in my fantasy of winning the cup, I want to do it going through freaking Pittsburgh because I hate them with every fiber of my being, and it would just be great. Now, I don't know if this is confirmed, but I also heard something about the top 4 seed teams playing a round robin themselves.
That's what I heard of that too.
Yeah, I heard that too. I don't know if that's true though.
I don't know. I think that might have been they said best of 7 with the round robin, right?
Yeah. I don't know. That's something that's not set in stone. If they did do that, they would play the Bruins, which I think would be good for them because it's the best team in the freaking league.
Right. Yep.
And
good point.
And I mean, I think it's going to be crazy just because there's not going to be any home advantage, and it's just going to be because they're going to
be tough, man. No practicing, big layoff. I mean, obviously be practicing, but not a lot.
And and just with they haven't decided on hub cities yet, but I'd imagine they would choose Vegas and probably somewhere in Florida, just because that's where everyone else is going. Right. But it's going to be interesting because they also have the even though there's no home team, they're still applying the like the last change rule and all that stuff for the home team. And it's going to be crazy just because nothing like this has ever happened. 24 teams.
It really is nuts.
And a team like, and I'll just say this real quick, like a team like Buffalo is being screwed just because they had games in hand, and like if they played those games in hand, they could have been in this. But
whoever the 25th team is definitely getting screwed.
Oh yeah, I just like like I said, I don't want some set in stone playoff team like Pittsburgh losing and getting the first overall pick just because that's something that God would definitely do to me.
Well, I guess the good news here is that the Flyers are in the playoffs, and we're going to have playoff hockey in Philly.
That's the important part.
That'll be fun. Wait. I want to touch the last topic of the night here. I want to touch on the NBA. I don't think it's set in stone yet. It even may be more confusing than NHL. They're saying 13 teams in the West and now 9 in the East. Is that correct?
Yeah, like what?
It's a 22-team playoff seeding. I think it's 29 of the 30 teams voted. The Trailblazers were the one team that did not want to approve. The training will start July 9th through the 11th, and they're looking to start off July 31st. And they're thinking it'll end around October 12th. And that means the next season starts just the 1st of December.
Yeah, and that's crazy. Another thing to add on to that is that the NBA draft, I believe, is now October 15th. So if you have that first-round rookie, they're coming in. What are you telling me? They have a week to learn the system? Is that what I'm hearing here? Are they really going to have a week to get their plays or their teammates? You can't do all that in 1 week. You can't get that cohesiveness in 1 week. So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
And then here's another thing. Once again, these guys have been laid off for umpteen months. Man, these games are going to look sloppy. You're going to see LeBron James airballing a fadeaway shot, and we're just going to be like, how the king stinks, we knew it.
T, let me tell you, the greats are still going to be the greats, and the Sixers are still going to stink. That's what I'm going to tell you right now. I think, I mean, I mentioned this a little bit ago, but right now I'd already be over the Sixers blowing their shot at it once again. Already considering our new coach's name and who we need to get in free agency. Dario Saric could be a possibility. But, now I have to go through all this again. I can't wait to see it. Joel Embiid sitting on the sideline because he's too tired. Because he ate too much Chick-fil-A. I can't wait.
Tough. I will say this:
Ben
it's going to be
Simmons, the only player really going out there and playing.
It'll be fun though. You got to think about how it's just going to shake out. An odd number of teams in each conference, and there's going to be Eastern Conference teams playing Western Conference teams, and we'll see how it all shake out. But again, listen, it looks like if that's the direction they go, I know it's not set in stone yet, but if that's the direction NBA goes, it could. Or we could wind up the Sixers. I'm talking about here. End up playing the Celtics in round one.
Well, let me tell you guys the race before we end the show tonight. The race for the 8th seed in the Eastern Conference. The Magic has the 8th seed right now, but the Wizards are 5.5 games behind, and the Grizzlies in the Western Conference have the 8th seed with the Trailblazers 3.5, Pelicans also the same amount behind, with the Kings behind. And the Spurs are 4 and the Suns are 6 behind.
So how do they shake out each the 13 in the West and the 13 and the 9 in the East? That those teams aren't all gathered up and
so
set, right?
I have the article right here. It says the current 16 playoff teams, along with the Trailblazers, the Kings, Pelicans, Spurs, Suns, and Wizards, will play 8 regular season games apiece at Walt Disney World Resort in Orlando in order to determine the playoff seeding.
So there are teams like the Heat and the Pacers and the Sixers are already automatically in. Is that correct?
Right.
Yeah, and this is all according to Josh Weinstein. There's a lot to read about right now, and we're kind of starting to get adjusted to it. It says under the new format, the number 8 seed in both Eastern and Western Conference will automatically clinch a playoff spot if it leads the number 9 seed by more than 4 games at the end of the regular season.
Okay, so you said about an 8-game, 9-game regular season, something like that.
Yep.
So
I know
it'll be a quick shootout to see who.
It's going to be interesting.
I know Damian Lillard has already voiced his opinion. He's like, man, I don't want to play no pointless game.
Well, the Trailblazers were the team that did not vote for it. So
yeah, and probably Damian Lillard had a big reason. Why they didn't vote for it. So, T, if that's anything else you want to add before the end of the show, that should about wrap it up for us.
All right. Hey, listen, you guys missed any of this episode, you can always go to philly-experience.simplecast.com, available on all major platforms, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, the entire 9. And look, I implore, I think all of us can say that we implore everybody that's protesting to just stay safe and please adhere to the curfew, because as you can see, they're not playing fair.
I second that.
Please
wear your masks too.
Yes, please. Yes. Yeah. I'm concerned about that too. What's the matter with y'all? So, wear your mask, man. Like seriously, no, because that's the one thing that threw me off. I'm sorry. On a joking matter, wear your mask, people. Please. We're still.
I agree.
And love each other.
Yes.
With the masks on.
Don't hug me. Don't hug me. I don't trust everybody. I might have to
buy everybody
beverage. I don't know.
Stay safe. Take care.
Say it.